I believe in the power of beauty. We are lucky to live in a place where it's easy to find beauty. We have mountains and seashore. We have lots of places to experience art, music, and theater. But we may not always think about how beauty can change our lives. So I'd like to share two stories about the mysterious power that beauty can have in our lives. In 1920, at the age of 17, my grandmother, named Laura, like me, was captivated by the newest form of transportation, airplanes. When barnstormers, or daredevil pilots, came to her town on the coast of Rhode Island, she was first in line for a ride. And when she ran out of her own money, she had the impudence to ask the proprietor of the general store to loan her more money for just one more ride. In 1925, she married a man, and soon she had two sons. And then she had a baby girl also named Laura. But this baby only lived a few days after she was born. Deeply saddened and now divorced, which was very much frowned on in those days, my grandmother was at a loss in her life. She loved her two sons, but she needed a way to process her sorrow and pain about losing a baby and the ending of her marriage. It so happened that a wealthy relative had recently died and left her a small sum of money. And thinking back on how much fun those airplane rides were when she was a teenager, she decided she'd use the money for flying lessons. And over the next few years, she would try to get to the airport as often as she could, leaving her little boys with her very kind sister. In 1930, she completed her solo test and was probably the first woman in Rhode Island to get her pilot's license. This, of course, was news in the small city of Providence, and soon she found herself being interviewed about her experience. In the article, the reporter exclaimed how interesting it was that this young single mother of two had taken up such an unusual hobby for a woman. But the reporter's question that was most important to my grandmother was what she liked about flying. And to this she replied then, and replied to all who asked her for the next 70 years, was this: the big thing about it is that you feel so completely alone. To be away from everyone, in the clouds at sunset, for instance, is perfectly thrilling, and I always come down feeling relaxed and refreshed. There's nothing like it in the world. And her experience of being alone in that sunset sky stayed with her for the rest of her life. My husband's mother, Alice, has dementia, the debilitating disease where a person gradually loses their ability to remember. There are still times when she can engage in conversation, and she might or might not recognize other family members. Over the last year or so, she has not always recognized her husband, Frank, to whom she's been married for 60 years. She will say to him, "When is my husband coming home?" not realizing who the man in front of her is. Obviously, this is disconcerting for us and devastating to Frank. So for Christmas, as a way to cheer up Frank, my husband decided to paint a picture of a place that was once very special to Alice. He painted a landscape of Loyalsock Creek, a beautiful trout stream in the mountains of northern Pennsylvania where Alice spent her childhood summers swimming, canoeing, and fishing with her family, and where she met her husband, Frank. Of course, we knew it was entirely possible that because of her memory loss, Alice would have no idea of the significance of the painting. But we knew that at least Frank would enjoy it. So on Christmas morning, my husband placed the wrapped painting in her lap, and we held our breath as she gently pulled the paper off. She looked at it carefully for a long moment, but my husband could not wait any longer. "Mom, do you know what that's a painting of?" he said. "Of course I do," she said. "It's Loyalsock Creek." Well, that brought us all to tears. Dementia's causes, its treatment, and its cures are all still a terribly frustrating mystery to us. But that little painting of a creek in the summer helped Alice break through the haze and confusion to reclaim her past and herself for a few moments that day. Thank you.